So welcome everybody. Thank you for being here. June is Immigrant Heritage Month, and we just want to celebrate that and highlight a little bit on the immigrants in Iowa, and just thanks again for being here today. I just want to start with a little bit of context. How many times in the last few weeks, months have you heard that we have a worker shortage here in Iowa, or in the nation for that matter? How many newspaper articles have you read or seen that says something like, we need to tap into global and immigrant talent to solve our worker shortage problem? Well, I have seen a number of these and heard a number of these, and I guess and suspect that you have done the same. On May 26th, there was a Des Moines Register article that said immigration is bringing new life to the Heartland, and Des Moines leads the way. It talked about how Des Moines has attracted more immigrants than any other Heartland city in the last decade, increasing its foreign-born population by nearly 50%, which is second highest rate in the whole nation. On June 10th, there was another article from CNBC that said something like, facing shortage of high-skilled workers, employers are seeking more immigrant talent. There's a number of others. There's another one that said the US does not have enough high-skilled workers to meet demand, especially for computer-related jobs, and employers are seeking immigrant talent to help fill that gap. For every unemployed computer or math worker in the country in 2020, there were more than 7 jobs postings for computer-related occupations. The Keenan Institute has a full article that's titled, Why America Needs High-Skilled Immigrants. Happy to drop that in the chat if you're interested. There are countless news articles and research papers around brain waste and tapping immigrant talent. Many of you might be familiar with a national think tank organization, Migration Policy Institute, who estimates that we have 2 million such individuals in the United States, people who have higher degrees and diplomas, people who have bachelor degrees, master's degrees, PhD degrees, doctors, engineers, but are under or unemployed. They're driving Ubers, working in hotels, housekeeping, and subpar jobs. While there is a huge amount of talent right here in our backyard, sometimes we just don't know where to look and how to find them. So just to give you, so today's webinar will be touching a little bit, so to say, scratching the surface of the iceberg. Just admitting a few more people here. But I encourage you to dig into this and learn and share with your peers, your HR folks within your organizations, your leaders, and continue this conversation that we're starting here today. So I just want to give you an idea of how we're going to be spending the next 90 minutes together. First, we will hear about some new data and demographics that I kind of touched on, but we have a national, again, think tank organization that we're very lucky to have and partner with. Asma Essa from New American Economy will be sharing some of this data around new immigrants in our state. I don't know about you, but I think I'm pretty surprised when I look at those data and stats around. This is not something we talk about in our everyday world, and so I hope this will be some new information for you. Then we have a number of nonprofit organizations in our metro who are actively working with our immigrant talent. And so just wanted to give an opportunity for them to talk a little bit about their organization, what they do, and hoping that you can make those connections with them so you can find more ways to connect with them and find the amazing talent that they're working with. And so without further ado, I will invite our first speaker, Asma Essa, to share her presentation, but just want to introduce her a little bit more. So Asma Essa is the Senior Policy Fellow for State and Local Initiatives at the New American Economy. She is responsible for fostering relationships with the business community, including Chamber of Commerce, individual employers, and statewide business coalitions, and connecting the state and local network to federal advocacy campaigns at New American Economy. Asma has more than 8 years experience working in research and development, stakeholder management and strategic planning, and outreach in academia, nonprofit, and urban planning. Asma holds a master's in international public policy, MS in urban and regional planning, and a BA in International Studies from the University of Wisconsin-Madison. We're so lucky to have you today with us, Asma. Please help me in welcoming Asma. The floor is yours, Asma. You do have screen share access.
Great, thank you so much for the kind introduction, Sanjita. I will just get settled and share my screen, and then we will jump into the presentation today. All right, is everyone available to or able to view the screen?
Yes.
Great. Okay, so I just wanted to start off with, I know that there's a lot happening in the world right now, and we just really appreciate the opportunity to explore the data surrounding the demographic and economic contributions of the foreign-born population in the Greater Des Moines metro area and also in Iowa as a whole. It is a real testament of how important this issue is, so I thank you for your time and interest. Again, my name is Asma Isa, and I'm the Senior Policy Fellow on the State and Local Initiatives team at New American Economy. And I'm joined today by my colleague, Mo Kantner, the Director of the State and Local Initiatives. I'm going to start my presentation with an overview of New American Economy, just a little bit of background of who we are, and then give a brief overview of the state and local initiatives before we start diving into the data. And please feel free at any moment, if you guys have a question that comes to mind, to drop it in the chat. We will do questions at the end of the presentation, but I hope that everyone is able to keep track of any things, because there's a lot of data that will be coming your way soon. So with that being said, let's dive in. So at A New American Economy, we are a bipartisan research and advocacy organization looking to change the narrative about immigrants in America. We were started about 10 years ago, and in our work, we use original research to quantify exactly how immigrants are an asset at every level of our economy and at every level in the community. We use this narrative to bring together leadership across states, cities, and the business community. This is a map of our state and local initiatives and where we're active nationwide. And so our state and local initiatives team has been around for over 7 years at this point, and we were really born after comprehensive immigration reform fell apart at the federal level. We saw this real desire from state and local leaders to be more proactive in approaching immigration within their own communities. We work in over 100 communities across the country, from cities as diverse as Grand Forks, North Dakota, all the way to Dallas, Texas. But where we really see traction for our research is in the Midwest, where we know population growth has slowed down and workforce shortages have been a real challenge. This next map shows a little bit of our activity engaging with chambers all over the country. One of the most valuable partners we have identified are local chambers of commerce. Chamber leaders understand that immigration is critical to growth, and they recognize the reliance local businesses have on immigrants as employees, entrepreneurs, and as customers. Our Global Talent Chamber Network is the main program, one of the main programs that we work with local communities. We're delighted to include chambers of commerce from coast to coast in our network, and we bring together chambers of commerce who see immigrant integration as an economic growth strategy. Through this network, we offer research, technical assistance, strategic advice to chambers on issues of immigration and integration, and also economic development. We also do offer to our Global Talent Chamber Network tailored research reports, which some of you might be familiar with. In 2016, we worked with GDMP on their global Des Moines Talent Attraction Strategic Plan. And out of this plan, we found that the #1 recommendation was to create a welcoming hub, and the GDMP received a Gateways for Growth Round 2 award with the goal of doing a needs assessment for that hub. Some of you also might be familiar with the Iowa Compact on Immigration, which GDMP is a key signatory.
Bear. It's hot though.
Which GDMP is a key signatory of the Iowa Compact. The Iowa Compact on Immigration is basically a set of principles to guide the immigration discussion at the state and federal levels. It is signed by 45 businesses, local chambers of commerce, associations, and academic and civic leaders. in Iowa that are dedicated to promoting common sense immigration reforms. And so now I'm going to get into a little bit more of the finer details of the data that is particular to the Greater Des Moines area and Iowa. Just a note for our purposes, when we refer to immigrants, we do refer to anyone that was not born in the US and not to US citizen parents. So that does include immigrants who are naturalized US citizens, those with green cards, those here on visas, the undocumented population, those with DACA, and refugees. So looking at the immigrant population in the Greater Des Moines metro area, we see that immigrants account for 7.9% of the population, which is slightly higher than half of the national average of 13.6 of the population. When comparing this to the immigrant population of Iowa, which is 5.6%, it is a slightly higher. So in Iowa, we do see that the Greater Des Moines metro area is quite diverse. When looking at the population growth in Des Moines, we took a look at between the years of 2009 and 2014, and we saw that the area had a 12% overall population increase. And then when looking at closer to the immigrant population, we saw the immigrant population increased by 25.1% over this time span. So looking at these numbers, we found that more than 14.9% of the overall population growth within those time years came from immigrants. Another area of importance that we also consider when looking at the economic contributions of the immigrant population in localities is their educational attainment. And we found that in the Des Moines metro area, 43.5% of the foreign population has a high school degree in some college, 15.6% has a bachelor's degree, and 10.3% have an advanced degree. And so we see that when comparing this to the US born population, these numbers are almost close, if not very much near to the US born population in the Des Moines area. When also looking at this on a statewide basis in Iowa, we found that in the state of Iowa, the foreign born population percentage actually had a higher percentage of advanced degrees than the US born population. So one of the things that that I mentioned earlier about the median age of the US population is that the median age is climbing. And so we are seeing an importance of the workforce and how businesses and local communities are locating this workforce and working age population. There is a particular interest in our work in the Midwest because immigrants are going to be a crucial part of any development strategy for a really simple reason, that the US population is getting older. By 2065, the median age will be 42. Baby boomers are retiring at rapid rates, with 10,000 baby boomers turning 65 every single day. So we see a declining national birth rate, which is leading to major shortages across industries, sectors, and in our workforce. When looking at the working age of the population in the Greater Des Moines area, we found that 83.9% of the foreign-born population are of working age compared to 62.2% of their US-born counterparts. People of working age are critical to ensure that we have a robust workforce, despite the COVID-19 crisis, and especially as we see communities and businesses opening up more and more, they are facing a real workforce shortage. When looking at the key industries that immigrants played a role in the workforce for the state of Ohio, the top 5 industries that we found with the largest share of foreign-born workers included animal slaughtering and processing, animal production and aquaculture, colleges, universities, and professional schools, general merchandise stores, and restaurants and other food services. So what we see here is that whether high-skilled or lesser skilled, immigrants are playing a huge role in important jobs that keeps Iowa going. When taking a closer look at the key industries in the Des Moines metro area that immigrants play a big role in the workforce, we found that the top 5 industries with the largest share of foreign-born workers were manufacturing, tourism, hospitality, recreation, administrative support, construction, and professional, scientific, and technical services. One sector where for years we've been seeing a chronic shortage of workers is in the STEM fields. Nationally, in 2016, there were 13 STEM job postings published online for every one employed STEM workers. And then when taking a look at immigrants in Iowa, we found that even though the immigrant population in Iowa makes up 5.6% of the overall population, the immigrants in Iowa make up 12.8% of the STEM workforce. These jobs have been particularly critical over the course of the past year. When these jobs go unfilled, companies not only are unable to expand operations or grow, but they can't innovate or adapt to quickly changing and evolving markets. Through one of our research reports, we found that in Iowa in the year of 2015, there were 63.6 STEM job postings published online for every unemployed STEM worker. These jobs have been particularly critical over the past year, and we find that there's a more and more increase in interest of paying attention to the important role that immigrants play in the STEM fields. Another area that we look at particularly is immigrants as business owners and entrepreneurs. Immigrants aren't just aren't just workers and employees, they're also business owners, and they provide jobs and create jobs for local economies. Immigrant entrepreneurs drive growth, both in job creation and local economic activity. And across the country, we see that immigrants are more likely to be entrepreneurs, employing over 8 million Americans and generating 1.3 trillion in sales. Between 2005 and 2010, the rate of immigrant entrepreneurs nearly doubled. And even after the recession in 2013, immigrants bounced back as entrepreneurs just as quickly as their US-born counterparts. When looking specifically at entrepreneurship in Iowa, we found that immigrant-owned firms generated 4 billion in sales and employed over 24,000 people in the state. And in 2019, there were over 2,600 immigrant entrepreneurs in the Greater Des Moines metro area. So immigrant entrepreneurs are making significant contributions to the economy, both on the main streets of central Iowa, but also as being heavy hitters of the business world. Across the country, 44% of Fortune 500 companies in 2020 were founded by either an immigrant or the child of an immigrant. And on average, each new American Fortune 500 company employs over 62,000 workers, 12% more than the average number of workers at non-new American Fortune 500 firms. So we're seeing immigrant entrepreneurs making a huge impact on both a local and a national scale. When looking at immigrant contributions on an economic level, we see that immigrants are having a real concrete impact in this area. As we can see here on the side, immigrants in Iowa earned $6 billion in 2019 alone. And from that, 581 million went to state and local taxes, 1 billion went to federal taxes, and 4.3 billion immigrants held in spending power. This is important to consider. We take a look at spending power in terms of the region's overall spending power, because this is important to understand individuals' disposable income, which can be infused back into the local economy where they shop at grocery stores, retail stores, restaurants, and more, and drive local economic activity. This next slide is looking at the spending power and tax contributions of immigrants, particularly in the Greater Des Moines metro area. So we found that immigrant total household income in this area was 1.5 billion. Out of that, 153 million going to state and local taxes, 248 going to federal taxes, and immigrant households in the Des Moines area held 1.1 billion in spending power. When looking at the population, the undocumented population in the state of Iowa, we found that this population had a total household income of 781 million, which 41 went to state and local taxes, 43 million was paid in federal taxes, and the undocumented immigrants in Iowa held over 600 million in spending power. When looking at the DACA eligible population in Iowa, we found that the DACA eligible population had a total household income of 82 million. And out of that, 9 million went to state and local taxes, 8 million went to federal taxes, and they held 64 million in spending power. And then the last population that I will cover is the spending power and tax contributions of refugees in Iowa. So the refugee population total in household income in the state of Iowa for the year of 2019 was 847 million. Of that, 84 million went to state and local taxes, 134 million went to federal taxes, with the refugee population holding over 600 million in spending power. Another thing we consider is when looking at the importance of the economic activity in the region is we look at housing wealth. So in 2019, 7.2% of recent home buyers were foreign born. Housing wealth held by immigrant households was about 7.5 billion, and immigrant-led households paid over 300 million in annual rent. When looking at Greater Des Moines area, we found that over 11,000 immigrants were homeowners. Another population that is important to consider in terms of their contributions to the economic activity in localities is international students. We found that over 11,000 international students at Iowa colleges were international, and they supported over 2,000 jobs and spent over 350 million in the 2018 and 2019 academic year. And the last bit of information I will share before we get into some resources is about the voting power in Iowa. So in 2019, more than 80,000 immigrants were eligible to vote, and 23,000 immigrants were eligible to vote in the Des Moines metro area. So I will wrap up the data presentation there, but the overall picture that these data points gives is that immigrants play an important role in the community and the economy of Iowa and the Greater Des Moines area. They keep the workforce young, they boost tax bases in large consumer bases, and they contribute their skills and labor to very important industries and key occupations in the metro area. I just wanted to leave you guys with a few resources that New American Economy has on our website. The first of which is our Immigration and COVID-19 portal, where you can find state and local responses, critical industries that immigrants play a role in, and some further research coming out of New American Economy and other partners that are focusing on immigrant contributions as essential workers. Another resource that New American Economy has on our website is Map the Impact. It's a tool that provides top-line data on all 435 congressional districts, all 50 states, and all 100 largest metro areas, which just happens to be released today. So that is fresh and new on the website with the most up-to-date data year that we have to report on those 100 largest metro areas, which the Des Moines metro area is listed on the website as well. And with that, thank you so much for your time, and I'll open it up to any questions for either myself or Mo. If anyone is curious about the resources we have, the data or methodology, our Global Talent Chamber Network, or any of the points that I discussed.
Well, thank you for sharing that information, Asma. Any questions for Asma so far? I'm just going to give all of you a minute. There are some pretty robust reports that the New American Economy has come out with. One is called Contributions of Immigrants in Iowa. I referred to that over and over again. It was my Bible when I started my global talent work about 4 years ago. So I encourage folks to look at it. I think we know that on a grand scale, on a big scale, that immigration advocacy, immigration laws, which a lot of us don't have control over in an everyday life, is something different, and that's what Asma and her group does. And from our perspective at the partnership, we do have our public policy team who's very diligently working on. And many of you, I see a lot of advocates on the call who do advocacy around immigration policy on an everyday basis. So it obviously takes a village, and that's something that moves a little slower than we wanted. But I think our challenge is, what do we do with the talent we have already in our community? As Asma pointed out, we do have a lot of high skilled talent in our community that we have not tapped into. And so I think today's webinar, we just wanted to highlight that a little bit. So I don't know if there are any questions. So yep, thank you for those resources on the chat. If I don't see any questions, so Asma, thank you for your presentation. Thank you for your time. I don't know if you plan to hang out, you're welcome to. We're gonna move on to the next part of our session. And so with that in mind, knowing that we have a growing immigrant population in our state, and employers are looking for employees all the time. Employees, we constantly hear, we need more workers. And I'd like to say we have workers right here behind in our backyard and who are work ready. We just need to look at them differently. We just, many employers don't know how to look at them, don't know how to find them. In my work of diversity, equity, inclusion, I also know that many employers are trying to find diverse workers, but we're not going to get diverse workers by going to the same sources that we've gone all the time. And so today we want to highlight some of our amazing nonprofit organizations who do an amazing job of working with our immigrant population in providing workforce readiness courses and classes. I did that for a number of years right here at the partnership. I had the privilege of working with more than 300 high-skilled immigrants. Any number of degrees, lots of computer science degrees, engineers, bachelor's degrees, and so forth. And lots of them have gone on to have professional jobs and meaningful careers. And we will be hearing from two of them today, who's on our call, and their stories. But if you are in any untapped talent group, there's probably an organization who's ready to work with them and for them. And so if you are an employer trying to find diverse source of hiring, this is why we are wanting to highlight some of our nonprofit partners who are doing amazing work in that area. Without further ado, I will pull up the presentation, and I will, I think Julie is first in the line, but give me just 1 second to pull the presentation up for us. If you have any questions or comments in the meantime, please continue to put them in the chat. As usual, I have way too many windows open and always have a hard time pulling the right. There we go. Awesome. So just wanted to give you an overview today that we have Julie Figgenshoe, who's Executive Director from Project Iowa, who will be sharing about what Project Iowa does. We have Sonia Reyes from the Office of Latino Affairs, Department of Human Rights, who will be talking a lot about her work with the Latinx communities. Amy Meyer, who is the Health Work Program Manager at United Way's Central Iowa Works, and Karen Kelly, who is actually our Welcome Center Manager at the Listen Services in Iowa, the Welcome Center that Asma actually talked about in the beginning of her presentation. So without further ado, I will pass it to you, Julie.
All right, well, thank you. And I'm glad to see everyone here again. I think I have 5 minutes, right, Sanjita?
5 to 7 minutes, yes.
Okay. When we started planning this and I was talking to Sanjita, I said, we've been doing this for about 5 years, trying to get people to really understand the diverse population of individuals we have ready to work here in Des Moines, Iowa. And so I'm hoping that we're going to continue to do that and find new ways to get these individuals hired. So I wanted to highlight a little bit about what Project Iowa does and what makes us a little bit different in the workforce training field out here is that we're really about transformation and connecting people to their purpose and career guidance and meaningful careers. So we really want to hook individuals into something where they feel they're contributing to our community, that they get value out of the employment that they have, and that it's stable. So we were formed really out of people wanting to work one job, not 2 or 3 jobs. And so I know that tends to be somewhat of an issue for our refugee and immigrant population. So we're really about, helping find those jobs and those careers that pay a livable wage and help people become stable in our community and I loved what they contribute back to our community. So that's kind of who we are and what makes us a little bit different. And our vision is that everybody gets to contribute to our community. When you're here, it makes us a much better community when everybody can find their way through employment to contribute. And I just want to say that through the pandemic, what we've seen is we have seen a broadening of people that have been coming to Project Iowa. And so really, when I say vision, that everybody can contribute. So we see people with really maybe minimal skills to those that have very high skills. So we need to have avenues for all of those that are in our community to find a way to get in touch with employers and find that meaningful career. So this is just a little bit more about what we do. We really want to be collaborative with the community and with professionals out in the workforce. So we're really want the whole community to succeed. So that is part of who we are, and that's what makes us a little bit different. So to date, about these are our core standards, which also set us apart from other workforce initiatives. I wanted just to give you a big overview of that. We're a really holistic program. We know that people, once they find a career, that's fabulous, but there's a lot more that goes into it. So we really want them to find purpose, career, and their stability. So we have a really holistic approach to helping people find employment, which makes us a little bit different. From the presentation before about data, I just realized and wrote that I think we take demographics and we report out on race and ethnicity per federal guidelines, but I think I need to add foreign born or born in the US so we get a more clear picture of this. So when I was speaking to who we serve and what we've seen a difference in, I just want to talk a little bit about since we went virtual, we have served quite a few more immigrants that have high education. Beforehand, we were all of our classes were in purpose and they were in the metro area. And so transportation timing, I think it made it difficult for some populations to get to us. We did serve some refugees and immigrants at that time. But what I've seen is we've really widened the gap. And so when I'm speaking about getting everyone employed here in the metro area, I think that we really have to broaden how we do that. So the virtual platform, I know, left some people out. And I also noticed on the slides that broadband access is a problem for some individuals, and absolutely. But it also opened the door for us to reach more immigrants within the last 2 years with education that had just come to the country and had no idea how to enter into any kind of interview or doing any, what our protocols and what the methods were to find employment. So it's really opened my eyes that we need to continue to create new avenues for those individuals seeking employment to come to us. I think for a long time it was like, come to our class, we're going to do this, it's in person. And I think that, the internet, doing some of it virtual, opened up some doors. I think that we just have to be really creative how we get people there. And we've also talked about, classes are typically held during the week. Can we be creative and do some classes on weekends so people can get skills to maybe move to a higher paying job and do some of those things? So I am really excited by this workshop today. I think Project Iowa has learned a lot, and we have expanded how we're going to reach people and offer opportunities for training and information about how to find purposeful employment. And I continue to look at others in our community. I know many of you on here have other innovative ways in which we can reach those individuals that are highly skilled and some that may need beginning skills to get into the workforce. But all of the people that are living in our community should be able to contribute to our economy and what we do out there, because that's how we make a really great community, if everyone is a part of it and able to contribute. So I look forward to continuing our work. If people have suggestions or ideas about how we can be more inclusive, I'm always open to that. I think that Des Moines can be a shining example for the rest of the state about how to be an inclusive and diverse workforce where all people are valued and able to contribute to our economy. So with that, I will end it. If there's any questions, I think there was one.
There is one question in the chat. I think Sonia asked for the data that you have are the numbers for Hispanics only, or does it include Latinos?
It does include Latinos.
So I think for employers, if you are here as an employer, again, I know that there are certain places that you look. Please feel free to build more relationship with these organizations because they always have a number of people who are ready to work, who have been trained and groomed and given all the resources. So thank you, Julie, for that overview. I know it was short time, but we're gonna move on. But I'm gonna look at the chat real quickly. Is your work focused only in Central Iowa, Julie?
No, we're located, our physical location is Central Iowa, but as I was saying, the virtual platform allowed us to open it up to all of Iowa. So we really do recruit across the state of Iowa. And it's been great for rural Iowa. So we've had a lot of people also join us from other areas that wouldn't have been able to access us prior to this. So yes.
Okay, thank you. And I just wanted to make a note that we know we're talking about all kinds of different levels of immigrants, and we're focusing a little bit on the high skilled immigrants, and here's why. And so when we started this work 4 years ago at the Greater Des Moines Partnership, we knew that if you came to Iowa as an immigrant, no matter who you were, there are several places that you go in the community to find job or help, right? Go to Iowa Workforce, you'd go to Goodwill Career Connection, you'd go to DMAC, you'd go to, maybe if you're, depending on who you're close to, maybe you'd go to Sonia, maybe you'd go to LSI or Central Iowa Works. And so all of these majority of the community organizations were equipped to and serving all of them. But if you came with a high skill degree, if you were a doctor, if you were an engineer, if you were, somebody who had a PhD degree and didn't know how your credentials would transfer, what kinds of licensing requirements you would have, there was really no place in Iowa for people to go to receive that kind of help. And that's the one reason there was a gap in the community. And so we tried to focus on that area for that reason. Amy, I think I have you spotlighted, so please feel free to go ahead. I will mute myself.
Great, thanks, Sanjita. I'm Amy Meyer. I'm the program manager for Central Iowa Health Work, which is a program of Central Iowa Works. Not to be confused with Iowa Works at Workforce Development. I know it's confusing, but I have been told we had the name first before they did. So I apologize for that confusion. So we were started several years ago as a workforce intermediary. And so you can really just think of that as a group that brought people to the table to talk about workforce issues. So hosted a number of partnerships, healthcare, TDL, retail, that kind of thing. So again, just bringing employers together along with some social service providers to address issues that were affecting the workforce, particularly for people with barriers to employment. And so that historically who we are now fully under the umbrella of United Way of Central Iowa. And in the past 5 years have gone into some federal grant work to have some more boots on the ground work that we can do to work on some of these workforce issues. So one of those grants through the Department of Labor is called Central Iowa Health Works, and it is for careers in healthcare. So we have anything from DCP, so direct care provider, all the way up to bachelor's of science in nursing. So to all the way to people who are becoming RNs, registered nurses. So we've been able to serve more than 500 people in the 4 years of our Department of Labor funding. And so what we actually do is provide the money part, so the tuition, books, supplies, testing, which is a really big cost in healthcare, as well as supportive services. So if they have transportation costs, if their rent falls through for the month, or childcare, things like that, we can help with all that money piece. But I think our case management is really what makes us so successful, and that's that one-on-one support. They have someone they can call anywhere along the line to help them, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a sec. But we have really been able to, next slide please, Sanjita, to target to really reach the groups that we intended to target, which was really exciting. So the grant itself focused on people underrepresented in healthcare, as well as people with barriers to employment. And so 70% of our clients, of our participants, were people of color, and 37% are refugees or immigrants. So more than a third of all our clients are foreign born, which was really great that we were able to tap in. I think part of being a United Way and having connections to all those different social service organizations really helped us when we were recruiting, because we had connections to the refugee organizations, to the other nonprofits and that kind of thing. So we were really happy with just that, that 70% number is great, but then we also tried to work a little bit on, okay, are they in the program, but are they in the program at the kind of direct care provider level, which is only a couple weeks, or are they in the program at the RN level, which is obviously a several year process. And so our focus now is, how do we bring people up along that pipeline? And healthcare is really great in that there really are some clear steps, a clear pipeline of how you can advance to a living wage and a good career. And so we try to get as many people in the door as we can, getting their CNA certificate, but then how do we encourage people underrepresented in healthcare? How do we encourage them to continue their career? And I'll share some stories too at the end if I have time, but you can look at our outcomes, and we're really happy with the amount of people who have been able to complete. And we did some research too to see are refugees and immigrants completing at the same rate, and there is a little bit of a lag there just due to English language learners. So if you take out the English issue, they're completing at the same rate, but that English language learner, some of those barriers can hurt them as they continue their degree. But we do have some supports there as well that we're trying to focus on to give them as much support as we can, so that they have a good chance of completing. But when it comes to things like standardized tests, the licensing requirements of nursing, some of that stuff is a little bit out of our control. But next slide, please. Some new programs that came about in these past few years. I saw some Broadlawn folks on the call. So Teach, has a lot of foreign-born participants in it. That's a CNA apprenticeship. The direct care provider training that's now housed under Lutheran Services of Iowa was a partner of ours as well. And that's a really great first step for people who maybe aren't quite ready to do the CNA class yet due to English proficiency. So it's just a really great way to work on some of that healthcare lingo and then move on to CNA. And then a certified medical assistant apprenticeship at Unity Point is another one. I don't have enough time to talk about our kind of model of case management, but just to briefly say, it's very hands-on. It's not sending a job opening and saying, here, apply for this job. It's a lot more working on resumes together, working on applications together, because we see that barrier of, an hour-long application process on a website, that's going to really tap out a lot of people who would make great CNAs or other healthcare professionals. I'll breeze over the next grant because it's not mine. So CIRCA is a program for returning citizens. So another Department of Labor grant, they do the trainings in prison and or other incarceration. And then when they graduate, they also have that really great case management that's going to help them find a job right after. So that's kind of our second big focus of Central Iowa Works. I want to just make sure I get to the story. So if you can go to the pictures when the pictures start of people. Yeah, Maria, because I want to talk about people, because I think that the stories themselves are kind of the most interesting thing. So this is Maria, and we don't have a ton of, I know that Sanjita talked about people with high skills. Maria was a doctor in Columbia. We haven't had a ton of that, but it does happen. We certainly have a lot of people who are nurses in their home countries, but I believe she was our only doctor. And she came to the country and she was a little bit older and realized that she just didn't have the time to recertify as a doctor. Kind of felt the process would be too hard. So she just went back to school from the beginning and became a nurse. And so she joked that she is the most skilled, the nurse in Des Moines, because she does have that doctor training as well. But she's one of our clients who, you know, it was hard financially to go back to school. And so our program was able to help her, and she did graduate. She followed her daughter to Texas, which we were very sad about, but a great nurse out there. Next is Marwa, and she's a good example too of that pipeline of getting someone in at the DCP level. We served her even before we had the HealthWorks grant. She got her direct care professional, did that training. She had a high school diploma from Egypt that for whatever reason didn't transfer, and she wasn't able to get that credential. So she started at the Flex Academy through Des Moines Public Schools and was able to get her high school diploma through that. Then we were able to move her up to CNA, and now she's working as a CNA, but pursuing her LPN, her licensed professional nurse. So yeah, again, she's done a lot of different steps. And Yolanda, we have a couple DACA recipients, and Yolanda is one of them. She just graduated, and so she talks a lot about how that when DACA was announced, she really felt the freedom that she could pursue education, but the financial piece is just huge because they're not getting loans the same way that you know, citizens are. So we were able to help her with the financial piece, and she is a graduated nurse now and working. So many stories. Again, we've had hundreds of foreign-born clients, very interested in healthcare. But one I just thought of that I think I want to share with this group is that a gentleman that we serve, he's an immigrant from Africa, but he was in Texas. It's weird that Texas has come up twice in this conversation, but he was originally in Texas, and now he came to school in Iowa. He went to Mercy College. And so I asked him, you know, how did you end up in Iowa from Texas? And he said that through his internet research and his social circles asking, he heard that Des Moines had a really good reputation for serving foreign-born individuals. So that was really great to hear, specifically Mercy College. So that was really cool. We were able to steal one back from Texas, and he actually brought his wife with him who is also an RN. So we were able to get two nurses based on that reputation of who is really here to help this population. So I thought that was really, really neat.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Amy, for that very brief overview. I know we skipped on a few slides, but thank you for that overview. Again, I'm encouraging all of our employers and attendees to reach out to these individuals, learn a little bit more about the work, and build collaboration to source new talent from them. So without further delay, I will bring on Sonia Snyder. Sorry, Sonia, I'm used to it. Sonia Reyes. My old friend from our old jobs. So Sonia, the floor is yours. I think you do have screen sharing capability if you're interested.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. I am going to quickly share my screen. So I'm with the Office of Latino Affairs, which is under the Iowa Department of Human Rights. And one of the main things that I do is work with organizations to make sure that they have the tools that they need and the information that they need to be able to serve the Latino population in the state. And also, besides that, also the queer population. And I am sharing our website because we have a lot of different resources for everybody, not just for the Latino community, but also for any organization. As we know, if employees who are new immigrants have a lot of barriers. And if we don't address those barriers, then they have a really hard time with employment. So I wanted to share all of these information with you so you have this and you are able to provide it to your employees. One of the initiatives that we have is PILA, the Association of Iowa Latinx Professionals. It is a statewide association, so we have Latino professionals, and by professionals we mean anyone who works outside of the home. I mean, I will argue that moms are also professionals, stay-home moms, but so anyone can join, and we have different networking events around the state, because when I started at the Department of Human Rights, I did a tour of the state to ask the community what it was that they needed assistance with. And a lot of professionals who were working in Iowa, even in Des Moines, said that they felt very disconnected from each other, and which is why they were going back to the states where they came from, or they were moving to states where there's a lot more people of color, because, you know, especially for our Afro-Latinos who are here, they could not, in more rural areas, they could not find places where they could get their hair done, and just very ethnic specific things in the cities. So out of that, the Commission of Latino Affairs and the office decided to start this initiative. So we meet with them, and so they can create that community sense that is missing once you're a new immigrant to the state, if you don't have family here or a lot of friends who are people of color. And we do monthly webinars about different topics that the members have identified that they want more information about. And one of the things that we also do is we provide them with job openings from nonprofit organizations who want to recruit either bilingual staff, bicultural staff, or Latinos for their jobs that they have. The other one that I wanted to share with you is the Iowa Queer Communities of Color Coalition. It is a coalition that is here to serve queer people of color in the state of Iowa. And one of those things is employment, specifically with our transgender community in the state. They have a very hard time finding employment. And once they make it to the interview, if they haven't legally changed their name to the name that they have chosen, then there's a lot of confusion. So the Iowa Queer Communities of Color Coalition is here to be able to support not just the Iowans, but also employers who need the information, and they need to know how to work with transgender people of color. And if you're a transgender immigrant who has DACA or who came here with refugee status, you know, there's all those different layers. So we are here as a resource for you if you have any questions or need support in that. And as you can see, we have different resources also. One of the things that I would say for if you're trying to make sure that you are hiring the people who live in your cities, because when we talk about diversifying your workforce, it really just means giving an opportunity to everybody to be able to work for you so your company can thrive. So in order to do that, we have, I would say the main thing is for you to create relationships with the different organizations that are working with the employees that you want. So we have the Latino Service Providers Coalition, one here and one in Marshalltown, and we're working on creating one in Sioux City. And these are service providers that work with the Latino community. Most of them are bilingual and bicultural, or Latinos and new immigrants themselves. And they work with the Latino community, with people who came here, with immigrants that came here with refugee status as well. So if this is a great resource for you. We meet monthly and we share job openings, resources. So if you have, I would say, you know, make sure that you invest in hiring someone who will create those relationships within those organizations that are in the community. So you're able to hire the people that live in your area who will stay there, who will live in the city where they work. And like I said, I'm gonna put the the link to this website on the chat, but all of these resources are here for you. And if you have any questions, please feel free to email me. We have commissioners around the state that also can help promote any job openings that you have.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Sonia. She is definitely a great resource. So please feel free to reach out to her. I know we're running just a little bit behind on our time schedule, so we're going to keep moving on, and I will invite Karen Kelly to talk about a little bit about the Lutheran services in Iowa and her services.
Thank you, Sanjita, and thank you to all the presenters today. Again, my name is Karen Kelly, and I am the Welcome Center Manager. Just want to be clear, the Welcome Center is not a physical location yet, but we're working with our community partners and really kind of surveying the landscape now after this pandemic year and after a great deal of tumult really over the last year in our community. So I wanted to share a little bit about Lutheran services in Iowa. And something I think it's really important to remember as we talk about attracting and retaining global talent is that these are whole individuals, not just workers. They come with families, friends might join later. And so it's really important that our community be a welcoming place for foreign-born individuals and offer, strong services that help people achieve their goals. So I want to talk really quickly about our services with Lutheran Services in Iowa, and then talk about this Welcome Center initiative. So first off, education services, and you can go ahead and go to the next slide, Sanjita. We offer English classes. So that is a really great need for people who are new to our country if they haven't had the opportunity to learn English in the past. We started our services with Refugee and Immigrant Services after doing resettlement for many years and really recognized a need also for English classes that were based in the communities where the foreign-born were living so that barriers such as transportation and childcare were mitigated. We also have a career pathways program. And as you heard from the Healthcare Central Iowa Works, we have been a partner with them to make sure that individuals who are learning English and also learning the new culture of work and living in the US have an opportunity to really take advantage of that opportunity and build their career despite those other barriers. And finally, we also offer a citizenship education program and partner with Iowa Migrant Movement for Justice to provide legal services to folks who are going through the citizenship education and achieving citizenship here. You can skip. We also have an economic development department. Our biggest program in that area is called Global Greens, which is a farm incubation program, really connects individuals back to agricultural roots. We have a farm incubator out in West Des Moines where farmers can learn the basics of growing their produce here in Iowa, and then also learn business basics. And we have a farmer's market every Saturday. We also have farmers who are selling their goods down at the downtown farmers market. And we also have started a community supported agricultural box program. So every week you can get a box of vegetables grown by farmers here in our community. You can go ahead and skip to the next one. I think another really important thing that we need to all be thinking about as we want to attract new folks to our community is thinking about asset building. And a program that we have is called Individual Development Accounts. It's a matched savings program that allows families to save money towards a major purchase, a home, a car, to go to higher education, or to open a small business. And as we heard from our first presenter, immigrant entrepreneurship is big and booming, and we are at LSI trying to create bridges between all the services that exist to grow and develop business, and really make sure that immigrants can plug into that and receive the education that they need around the systems and rules and procedures here in the US. And finally, childcare. And we know that that's a big infrastructure issue here in Iowa. And we work with individuals to become in-home childcare providers. And again, teaching them how to do the work of childcare, but also how to create a business of that activity. And again, I mentioned that we have to remember that these are whole people, and there are not only working age immigrants who are coming to our community, but there are also the elders who are also part of the fabric of our community. And we offer services, citizenship education, and also socialization for elders to be part of the community. We also do mental health therapy and different work around building family strength. And we have a program called Refugee and Immigrant Guides. We partner with other organizations here in the community to provide language and cultural support to families who have gotten involved with the juvenile court system. And you can go on to the next one. And as you heard from the presentation with A New American Economy, one of the big findings of the research they did here in central Iowa and the Des Moines metro area really pointed to the fact that there are many services throughout our community, a lot of people doing really great work, a lot of organizations really doing their best to connect people with opportunity and increase family, family self-sufficiency, but also achievement and success based on what that family desires. So this idea of the Welcome Center is really to bring those services together and create a centralized hub where people can get the services they need when they're new to the community. So maybe that's an English class, maybe it's an opportunity to learn about growing a business here in Iowa. But the idea is really to build the capacity of our community to serve English language learners, people from different backgrounds, and have a centralized place that's where you can go and know that you'll get connected to the services that you need. So part of that will also be building a network of community resource navigators who really have that cultural understanding of the clients that we serve and are able to help navigate all of these different systems and services here in our community. Yep, I think that was all for now. So again, my name's Karen, and if you have questions about how LSI and the Welcome Center Initiative are trying to really connect families to the different services and opportunities here, I'd love to connect with you, and I'll put my information in the chat box as well. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Karen, for that overview. Now I'd like to move on to the last part of our segment of our program here, which I'm really excited about. I have two fantastic individuals that I had the great opportunity and honor to work with in the last few years. So I will first go with Janet. Janet, you are highlighted here. So Janet, please tell us a little bit about yourself, introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about your story, your immigrant story in Iowa, and your journey to having a professional career today. We can't hear you. Unmute yourself, sorry.
Okay.
There we go. Yes.
Okay. Okay, thank you for these opportunities, Sanjita, for having me here to talk about my experience as an immigrant. So I am from Venezuela, a beautiful country in South America. I graduated as a veterinarian there, and I got a position as a professor in animal science at Central University in Venezuela. There I had the opportunity to get a scholarship to study abroad. At that moment, the situation in my country was totally different. So I had the good opportunity to come here to the University of Nebraska to get my master and PhD in animal science with focus in swine nutrition. After 4 years, I returned to my country because I had commitments there. So, however, after many years working there, after 13 years to be more exact, so my husband made the difficult decision to come to the US, given the difficult situation in my country. The political, economic, and social situation in my country was very difficult at that time. And we made that decision in 2015. So my husband has the US citizenship, and that allowed him to apply for a position here in Iowa. We were concerned about the future of our children. We have 2 sons, and both of them were born in Nebraska when we were there getting our PhD. And raising them here in the US was a very good option. So we are doing that. So during 2 years, I was looking for a job. I thought that it would be easy to find a position here in Iowa because there are more pigs than people. And because I got a degree here, so I thought that it was easy, but it wasn't. I submitted my resume to many organizations and applied for some positions without any success. Because most of the organizations I applied require 70% of traveling or relocation. So at that moment, that would be a difficult situation for my family. So through a good friend, I connected with the Greater Des Moines partnership and learned about their global talent initiative program. I met with Sanjita and we discussed my interest, my skills. We review my resume, and Sanjita was impressed how having such a skills, it was very difficult to find a job. So at that moment, there was a company that was opening a new headquarter office in Grimes, Instapro International. And Sanjita got my resume and she went to the opening ceremony and gave my resume to the CEO of that company. So a week after that, I got a call from the human resources. And I was asked to have a meeting with the Vice President of Nutrition Technologies. So Instapro is a leader in extrusion technology for oil seeds, cereals, for pet food, and fish feed. So it was a very good opportunity because they are focused on nutrition and nutrition behind the equipment, because they manufacture extruders, but those extruders are used to process ingredients to add value to those ingredients to feed animals, not pigs, dairy cows, poultry, pet food, and fish feed. So it was a very good opportunity just to meet with the Vice President of Nutrition. I talked to him, and 2 weeks later, I got a call with the offer when the right position came about. And I was offered the position of Applied Nutrition Technologies. And I have been there for almost 3 years. And I feel very comfortable there because it's a great team to work with. That is a continuous learning, not only learning from our customers and my colleagues, but learning every day because I have to be studying every day, learning new science, connecting with Iowa State University, Virginia Tech University, Pennsylvania State University. All those universities work with InstaPro on writing the projects and proposal for animal feeding trials, because we are continuously testing the quality of extruded ingredients for animal feeding. And we, InstaPro, work with universities, and I support those projects. I support customers around the world, not only in Latin America, but also in Southeast Asia, and also here in the US. But I have been learning a lot, working with a great team who gave me the opportunity to demonstrate my skills, my knowledge. It's a perfect environment for me. It's just, the office is just in Grimes. I need to travel sometimes, but it's just 20%. And now after this new post-pandemic world, I am working in 3 times at home and just 2 days, 3 days at home and 2 days from the office. We have a research and development center there, and we are testing new technologies for our customers and prospects who come here to test that technology. I support them, and InstaPro is a very good company to work with because they support the learning, the improving of employees. Mm-hmm. And I feel perfect there. That is a very meaningful opportunity for me to develop as a professional.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing that story. I think Janeth is just one of so many, right? We talked about nationally, there are more than 2 million such individuals, and just a very small example of that brain waste happening right in our backyard. Somebody who went to school and college here and still did not have a job for almost 2.5 or whatever, a little bit over 2 years when I met Janet. So we these are just 2 stories today, but we know there are lots of stories, lots of people like Janet and Sam, who's I'm going to bring on next. Since we're running out of time a little bit, Janet, we're going to hold off questions just a little bit, and we're going to transition to Sam. So Sam, welcome. Thank you for being here. Welcome. I'm going to pull up your presentation, and you are welcome to go for it, my friend.
Thank you. Okay. Yeah, my name is Sam Ataroga, as she said. I'm currently an assistant vice president and control adoption lead within the Wells Fargo Identity and Access Management team within the cybersecurity organization. Some of my specialty here is cloud security solution architecture, identity and access management, so subject matter expert. Then I am a team lead that I've worked with about 19 team members all over the world to deploy a solution to about 300,000 users across 1,000 third-party hosted applications for Wells Fargo. The next one. So I came here in 2014 as a student for communication studies. Before I came here, I did a little bit of IT work back in Nigeria. So I have that IT background. It's something I've always done. Even though I did my undergrad in theater and communication, I've not really worked professionally in that field. So when I came here, I came here as a student, had my first culture shock here, where I totally stopped being myself. I couldn't really relate. They tell you about culture shock. They tell you about changes when you come. is different. It makes you isolate yourself. It makes you stay out of your zone. So one of the things that I did when I came here was just campus job, because that's all you can do as an international student. So there wasn't really any skill set being developed in those areas, except you're trying to make money and pay your bills. The next one. So in 2015, I hit a financial hardship. I couldn't pay my tuition. I had to go back to doing hard labor, talking to my professors, looking for whatever work they have around their house, gardening and landscaping and things like that, just to keep myself going. One of the big lessons I learned within those times is in America, you have to be in the loan system. You have to grow a credit if you want to survive in America, if you're going to grow. So one of the ways I was able to get out of that financial hardship situation, especially when it has to do with my education, was getting student loan. And today I'm one person that whenever I come across people that just come to this country, I tell them as soon as possible, get a credit card. If it's with $200, just know how to spend, get education on how to grow your credit, get a credit card. One of the things I did back then was also like doing research into culture shock and how it affects people's performance in the classroom and at workplaces. And you will be surprised that a lot of people within your workspace, in your classrooms, are not being their best because they do have some type of feeling that makes them not feel acceptable within your group. That holds back performance a lot. That's something I learned from that research. Next one. So in 2016, I graduated and I moved to the Des Moines area through Nationwide. Nationwide gave me a job. I used to live in Cedar Falls. I got a job at Nationwide Insurance. I came here on my very first corporate America experience. I was in that space, and looking back, I felt like I should have done better. But again, I was just new. I didn't understand how things were happening. I came to that environment with a lot of culture shock. My teammates would try their best to get me engaged, to get me going, to get me feel like a member of the team. But I had issues that I had to deal with. I had my own issues with getting used to the environment, with communicating with people in a clear way, telling people what I need, being assertive and things like that. That affected how I lived my life and how I performed at work. And I also had this thing that I tell people now, is a me versus them mentality. When you come in and you get introduced to, you see a lot of things that are happening to people that are international within your community. You see the news, you see how most things around you are anti the people that are the immigrants. And then that begins to affect you. When you go to work, you are looking around you. Is this person for me or are they against me? Those are the things that contributed to me holding myself back. But looking back, something I learned is maybe not everyone is that way. Maybe I needed to have opened up myself a little bit more to people, learning to know that not everyone in America is anti-immigrant. So in 2015, I had a little bit of a problem with my immigration. At this time, I was supposed to return back to Nigeria, but I had to file for an asylum because of political instability and things that were happening back home. These were things that were also holding me back psychologically and mentally. These are some of the things that people that are in your environment, immigrants that you see are going through, that you do not even understand, that you do not even know. Things that are affecting them. When you hear of things like people are seeking for asylum, it's not because they love America more than they love their home country, but there are situations that you don't have any option than wanting to stay back here and grow here. And when you also see things that are happening around you, things that are happening in the news, and you don't feel accepted, then you are left in a place where you're scared of making moves. But one thing that helped me within that period was learning to fraternize with Americans, learning to step out of my own shell, relate with people. And that was in that process, I met my now wife, who was then my girlfriend. And I opened, for the first time in my life, I was able to open up to an American and not be scared that they're going to use anything against me. And that actually, we built a strong friendship. And she understood what I was going through in a way. And, we started talking, and luckily for me, around the time where I got my immigration issues fixed, she started networking. She started introducing me to people, even though that's something that was new to me, because I'm coming from a culture that is totally different from the one that I'm in now. So it's hard to come out of my shell and introduce myself. But through her, I started meeting people. We will go out, go to community events, go to events that she's hosting, because she's a community organizer, and I will meet people there. During one of those networking events, I met one of her friend, or someone who knew her, and she was a recruiter, a contract recruiter, and she said, send me your resume. I sent my resume. She took a look at the resume. She gave me feedback. I worked on this feedback, and that's how I got my first contract job. I started working contract jobs, but I couldn't stabilize. I couldn't, stay within the job, because one thing I didn't realize then is getting the job is just a way in. You also need to learn how to network within the job. You need to learn how to get to know people within the job and use that to your advantage. So that's something I learned in the process. In 2018, in one of those my scenario where I had just lost a contract job is when I was also introduced to Sanjita through my wife. I think it's one of those networking activities too, if I remember clearly, that they introduced me to Sanjita, and she started. I could relate with her more, even though even more than my wife at the time, to be honest, because I felt like she's international. She was speaking to me in a language that I understood. She was. I could see myself in her. She gave me hope. Like, oh, if she can do it, then I can do it. Then she started talking to me about networking. The similar things some people have spoken to me about, but now in a more integral way, in a language that I can understand, in a format that it makes sense to me. And while we were talking, she said, send me your resume. I sent my resume to her. She took a look, and she said, well, it looks like you have a lot of technology experience. I said, yes. I worked most of my job all through my stay in Nigeria is all in technology. She said, well, why are you trying to apply for public relations job? Is it because you got your degree in communications? I said, yes. She said, no, actually you can do this IT. This is how you can bridge the gap. You can go take certification classes. Then she told me this story about her husband and a couple of other people she's seen and have them made that transition. And that was encouraging. And that actually gave me hope. And from that meeting, I went home, I looked for a career counselor, who started working with me to develop my resume and help me build certifications that will make more sense. It helped me figure out what path is best for me. While I was working on that, I ran into Sanjita. Actually sent me another email about the Career Readiness for International Professionals program. It's a program where they will teach you things about how to adapt to the American corporate culture, they had coding classes for those who are interested in IT. It's essentially something that will, it's more like a development program. And one of the things they were doing in that program towards the end was what they call the mentorship program. During that mentorship aspect of the program, I was introduced to Alex, who worked at Wells Fargo, because I was already a contract staff at Wells Fargo. And and things that I will learn from the class, things like how to look for a job within the company, because Sanjita would teach us things like, while you're a contractor, you need to look within the company. You need to start having conversation with people. You need to put yourself out there. You need to learn how to communicate even with your team members, because those are going to be your references. You need to be bold. You need to own things that you do, because that was one of the things that I lacked in. I didn't know how to own up to my own achievements. She said you need to own your achievements, speak out during meetings. That's how they get to know you. And when I met Alex furthered that knowledge, showing me within the company. Alex will, I'll actually chat Alex up and say, hey, this is the position I'm looking at. Do you know what they pay? Do you know how I can go about the interview? And we'll schedule a one-on-one meeting, and Alex will sit with me and walk me through the process and show me tricks about the interview and how I can. And sometimes even some of the job, he will say, hey, I'll reach out to the hiring manager and put a word or two in for you. Within one of those processes, that's how I landed my first full-time job in Wells Fargo. And ever since then, I've been taking some of those knowledge with me. Thank you.
Oh my gosh, that Alex, Sam, thank you so much for sharing your story again. I think I can't believe you remember all the small details from like 3-4 years ago, which I've forgotten. But again, I think we want to showcase just what kind of talent was just waiting and feeling frustrated. Here's people, employers saying we need talent, and here's people like Sam and Janet and hundreds of other people right here, just, you know, in today's, sometimes in the American context, we have an idea of a perfect employee, right? And sometimes that perfect employee doesn't look like Sam or Janet or me. In fact, they don't sound like Sam or Janet like me. And so I think we have to continuously challenge our system, what biases we may have in our hiring processes, how much of that, you know, accent or whatever bias that you may have is really going to hinder and stop Sam from being that great performer and allowing him to utilize all of his skills to the best of your organization. Janet has proven again. I'm so glad that this has worked out for you also, Janet, that InstaPro and Volumes speaks of the employers who took that chance on you, who gave that opportunity, mentored. Sam talked about the mentorship program. Never underestimate mentorship. If you have an opportunity to mentor someone, support someone, provide a little bit of guidance to someone, whether it's somebody you know, somebody you go to church with, somebody who just, you know, your parent, your you know, you're friends with, somebody in your network. I think those are all things that all of you individually, regardless of where you sit in an organization, can still do to support. And if you're in an organization, again, challenging the hiring processes, challenging the biases, challenging where are we actually looking for talent? Are we going to these different excuse me, organizations who are working with these individuals? So is there any question for Janet and Sam or any of our panelists in the last minute or so that we have? Hearing none, I would like to thank all of our panelists, our speakers, our guests, Janet and Sam. Janet, did you have anything that you wanted to say? I see you were unmuted. You're good?
Yeah. So I just want to say thank you so much because of you, I found the perfect job. So that job is totally aligned to my professional skills, knowledge, and I feel totally comfortable there because the team is a very good team to work with.
Thank you, Jen. It was all you, Janet. We just had to help you make that connection, right? Somebody did that for me too. My previous boss, Mary Bontrager, recognized the talent in me, and she brought on me to the partnership. And there are a few people who do that for you sometime, and you want to pass it on, you want to do it for others. And I encourage all of you to be that for someone, to do that one thing for somebody else, regardless of whether you're in a hiring situation and ability to hire, but you have the influence to be a champion and to be a change agent. So thank you again for spending this really long 90 minutes with us. I hope you have some key takeaways, and please feel free to reach out to any one of our speakers who've dropped in their email and contacts in the chat box.